Hello and welcome to The Last Video Store, the show where I, Alexei Toliopoulos, talk to cool and interesting people about their favorite movies, and we do so in the style of an old school video store rental combo. I've been so looking forward to this week's guest, Robert Forster of the band The Go-Betweens. For when it got floated to me, I was like so excited for this one.
Yeah, we both were, weren't we?
Yes.
We skipped around the office like holding hands, spinning in a circle.
We're running around those shelves, stacking the discs and the DVDs, the VHS with a lot more verve and joy. We heard Robert Forster was coming in. But when you think about Australian music, it's hard not to think about the Go-Betweens for me.
Yeah.
Like truly one of the great Australian bands of all time. Robert Forster and Grant McLennan, two of the greatest songwriters in Australian history, I'd say. If you don't know the Go-Betweens, you know many of their songs. Streets of Your Town.
Yeah, that's a really classic.
Classic. Spring Rain is maybe my favorite.
Yeah.
And the song Spring Rain is used in one of my favorite movies, Something Wild by Jonathan Demme. So I've always wanted to ask about that. So you do believe I will be able to ask about it. There's also another song that I really want to ask about. I think it's like their first single from back in the 70s called Lee Remick, about the actress from The Omen.
Yeah.
Lots of classic films, Anatomy of a Murder. And I always want to know what his favorite Lee Remick movie was. So that will be definitely a question that I'm going to ask Robert Forster when we get in here. But I've been so looking forward to this. Robert Forster, of course, is now a solo artist. He's got a new album called Strawberries out right now. Love this. One song in particular is called Breakfast on a Train, which is just truly a masterclass in his exact kind of storytelling. It's very evocative. It creates visions in your mind instantly, and it's got this great drop of an F-bomb in it that is so fun. I love this album. And if you want a little bit more Go-Betweens, the Go-Betweens Right Here, the documentary by Chris Stenders, former guest of The Last Video Store, is, I think, top of the class of rock documentaries that encompass an entire catalog and career. Really entertaining, really, really fun, really frank. Fantastic movie. High recommendation for me. But I've been so looking forward to this. Robert Forster, he's always been a cinephile in my mind. So to finally talk to him about movies has been a bit of a long time coming. My uncle Bernie has interviewed him, who I've talked about in this podcast before, who's kind of the music version of me. And my cousin Rowan Howard, I'm going to give him a shout out. He interviewed Robert Forster for a high school project when he was in year 12. Many years ago now. And my cousin has just written his first book.
Wow.
So he's a historian as well. I'll give a shout out to the book. Why not? Let me do it.
Robert's a generous man and loves the Toliopoulos, obviously.
Well, you know, these are not the Toliopoulos side of the family, but Rowan Howard, my cousin, his new book, The Southern Frontier, Australia, Antarctica, and Empire in the Southern Ocean World. So that is out there
recommendation
now.
right here. If you love film, you're going to love this book on it.
Yeah, if you love me, you'll love my cousin's book as well. But a big shout out, you know?
It's exciting.
It's so funny. But that's it. Close the loop. We're in there. Let's get into our discussion with Robert Forster. His album Strawberries is out right now.
The Last Video Store.
Robert Forster, thank you so much for joining me here inside The Last Video Store.
Lovely to be in the store.
It's my pleasure to have you here. I've been looking forward to this for so long. I've always thought of you as like a big film guy, so I'm excited to see what you're picking up today.
Okay, no, I have been. I started in the 70s, and I've tried to follow it all through.
Well, I think I always kind of go back to the documentary that you made with Chris Stenders, former guest of the show, about your band, The Go-Betweens, called Right Here.
Yeah.
And in that, it really seems like so much of your friendship with Grant McLennan was kind of kicked off by like a shared love of film and curiosity in film. Can you talk about that as like a...
Yeah, like Grant was, like all my film education came from Grant. You know, like when I met him, he was 17, and he was someone that was talking to me about, you know, film noir.
Yeah.
You know, Italian neorealism, You know, like he was, because I was just sort of like what I saw on TV. But he was sort of like what could be called, you know, this is a horrible word perhaps for some, a movie buff.
Oh, I love the term movie buff. I even prefer cinephile even more.
Okay, well, he was both. And so he was the one that sort of had all the books, had the movies, was helping program the university cinema. Like,
wow.
You know, so he was the one that, like, for one example, he was the person that spoke to the people at the cinema at the university. Look, put on, you know, Woody Allen put on Annie Hall because Annie Hall had not been shown in the cinemas in town because it was too weird. And so they put it on at the university cinema and it ran for about 20 weeks.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, and so Grant did that at 17. And so, you know, he sort of had the history of cinema in his head and he would sort of tell me, oh, you've got to watch this, you know, like at 10:30 at night, you know, like Red River, you know, directed by Howard Hawks.
Yeah.
You know, like John Wayne Montgomery Clift. You got to watch that. Or there'd be a Truffaut film on, for some strange reason, the midday movie used to exist. So
they're putting Truffaut in the middle of the day?
Yeah. And a film called Stolen Kisses.
Beautiful film. One of the Antoine Doinel films.
Exactly. And so he'd go, don't come to university, like tomorrow, you know, midday, Stolen Kisses on Channel 7. 12 o'clock.
He knows where the real lessons are being taught.
Yes. And so I just would stay at home and just watch it. And I started to see films through his eyes. And so at 17 or 18, I met someone and like, you know, Grant was into, in the 70s, there used to be this debate about Chaplin and Keaton, who was the genius of the 20s. And Grant was definitely a Chaplin person. And so he had Chaplin posters, all, you know, because he worked at the university cinema, he had first picks on all the cinema posters.
Yeah.
And so in his shared house, which I moved into, there'd be all these Fellini posters through the house and, you know, huge, you know, like wallpaper virtually. And so he was my introduction.
Wow, I think that's true cinephilia. If you're decorating every aspect of your walls.
Totally.
Another thing I was so looking forward to asking about this because when I think about your music, there's one film that has this great moment to one of your songs. And it's one of my all-time favorite films, but I think maybe the greatest mixtape style soundtrack of all time, which is Jonathan Demme's my God, I almost blanked on the movie, Something Wild. Jonathan Demme's Something Wild, which has Spring Rain for this one key moment in there. Can I ask you, from a musician's perspective, what is, in every sense of the word, I guess, the value of having a song in a soundtrack and the musician's relationship to music soundtracks for films?
It was like that came completely out of left field. And I think it came through from memory from Jonathan Demme's daughter, who recommended the song. And to me, it was more like, how did that happen? And, you know, I mean, it was a beautiful thing at the time. And that song has also been, I found out it's been in an Italian film as well. It's been in a couple of films.
Yeah.
And
because it has like this kind of beautiful forward momentum, that song.
Yes,
like
it does.
Especially for a road movie like this one.
Yes.
It kind of fits right in, but then he finds a darkness to that song.
Yes. No, it's beautiful. And the video for the clip, which was shot here in Sydney, amazingly enough, back in 1986, is actually probably my favourite video that the band ever did. So it lends itself, the song, to film in not only a film but also a video, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So perhaps if you can make a good video to a song, it'd work in a film. But that's another topic of discussion.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just one of those great moments, I think. So it's also, that film just has such a great soundtrack because your song is like kind of a key to it, where the first part is like this kind of bouncy, buoyant, lots of world music, and then it kind of goes to more guitar rock.
Yeah.
And your song is one of those first songs that start changing that tone for it. Just one of my favorite movies, and one that I think about the soundtrack all the time.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I want to, before we get into our chats, I got to ask you, you've talked about this like burgeoning cinephilia that you had. That's just before the video store era. Do you have any video store memories?
Many. Probably the biggest ones were when we moved back to Australia. I was living in Germany and we moved back in the early 2000s. You could probably tell me more about this, you know, the absolute heyday. But there was one in Brisbane which was in Paddington in Brisbane, which had a sort of art house type thing
beautiful.
about. So like, and everything was there. Do you know what I mean? You could go through all of that sort of stuff. And we picked out, European art house doesn't actually fit with children. There's a fair amount of nudity. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Yes, I have noticed, and I would say it was formative to my own cinephilia at a certain point.
That was in Paddington. And then we used to go over to one, I know I'm doing Brisbane suburbs. So
I love it. We love the Brisbane specifics for this.
And then there was one over CANBERRA that we used to drive, and that was more the kids, and that was more when we're doing like Father of the Bride with Steve Martin, and a lot of the children's. That's what I mostly remember is the children's films that we saw from about 2005 to about 2010, and we were members.
Good. I hope you're not going and stealing them off the shelves.
No, Blockbuster.
Yeah, beautiful.
I don't know if I can say brands.
You can say the brands. I mean, they're not going to sue us now if we say their names.
No, Blockbuster. And so there was one at CANBERRA. It really was more the children.
Yeah.
And who would get very, you'd pick up, like you'd walk out with that, with about 6. And I'm very, very lovely. And it got kids walking around films. I mean, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like walking by racks. Mm-hmm. And so
a physical exploration,
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so that was good. The one downside, ice cream and chips were very overpriced.
Yeah, it's true. Well, they have to make their prize
They
somehow,
do. They do.
But, now we don't have any chips or ice cream available for you today. And if I did, I would chuck them in for free for you.
I go, well, that's very kind.
Well, I'm a very kind man. I got to look after my guests here.
I can tell.
Before we move on, one final question before we get into the picks. Do you have a favorite Lee Remick movie?
Yes. Oh, what's it called? The Hallelujah Trail, which is I think that's what it's called, Hallelujah Trail.
Let me look it up. That's one that I'm not familiar with.
About 1967.
Here we go.
With her, it's a Western.
Yeah, it's 1965.
Yeah.
Hallelujah Trail.
Hallelujah
It
Trail.
is Burt Lancaster. Burt Lancaster.
Yeah.
And it's a mockumentary spoof.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. I've never heard of this movie in my life.
Yeah. It's a sort
I can't believe this.
It is. You asked for it.
I love this.
And it's sort of, it was like Hollywood really early sort of in the 60s, the mid-60s where they started to just sort of mess around with the formula. It became a little bit self-conscious,
Yes.
so it was like
the first inklings of a new wave perhaps coming
exactly.
through.
Yeah. And that was a film of hers I really liked. That was like TV, again, pre-Grant, TV, Saturday afternoon, 2:30, and I saw that and I just loved it. I loved her in it. She looks incredible. And that's definitely a favorite.
And then the rest is history. Your music career started.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote that song called Lee Remick, which is the first go-between single. And I actually met her in Sydney.
Oh, really?
1986. Really weird.
Did she know about the song?
Yes, because when we put it out in 1978, somehow we sent her a copy. Like we made 500 copies. And, being white, we just Lee Remick Hollywood virtually. And, but then
It
we
found its way there.
Yeah, and then we found out that I don't know how this, that her son had, again, and she knew about the single. Somehow we found that out. And then actually, you can look this up as well. So that was 1978, right? In 1986, the Go-Betweens were touring here, and I was staying at this hotel up in the Cross, this really rotten, the band was staying in this hotel, like screaming in the rooms next door, all that sort of stuff. And a woman from Punk Days from Brisbane got in contact with me somehow, and who was working, and she said, look, I'm working on who I hadn't seen since 78. I'm working on a film that Lee Remick is making in Australia, and I'm doing costumes on it, and she knows about the record, and I could take you to the Siebel Townhouse
Oh, my gosh.
and meet her, right?
Yeah.
So her and I met up. I bought flowers. We walked through the Cross in 1986. We got the Siebel Townhouse. We go up to the top, and I've written a song about her when I'm 20, right?
Yeah.
And I'm now 30 virtually. And she was there, and I walked through and I gave her flowers, and she came out and she went, "We meet at last." I was like shaking, and we sat down and she talked for half an hour, 45 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Her and I, just like this.
Yeah.
1986. And so I wrote a song about a movie star, and then I meet her. Wow. Isn't that incredible?
My God, I got to start trying this myself if it works out.
Long
road. It took a few years.
Do it. And so she made this film, which I think is ghastly, here in Australia. I think it's set in the Second World War. And in 1986.
Let me look this one up for you as well. Lee Remick, 1980s.
In Australia. Mid-80s.
Okay.
It must be 86 because that only came out in 80.
Okay. Yeah. No. That's not this.
86, 87? Because I forget what it was called or who else was in it.
Let me try and find it for you. This is a little mystery we've uncovered now. Emma's War, 1986.
Australia.
Miranda Otto and Lee Remick.
Yeah.
Wow.
That would be the film.
Wow. It's got there's very little about it at all.
Yeah. It bombed.
Wow. But
Miranda Otto's in it.
Young Miranda Otto's in it.
Did it say who directed it?
Tiny. Yeah, Clytie Jessup.
Don't know that person.
British-based Australian actress. These are all new information for me. The only thing that I can see about it is that David Stratton wrote about it in The Avocado Plantation, which is about the end of the Australian New Wave.
Really?
Yeah. So I've been rereading that book, so I'm going to have to go look for this lost Lee Remick movie now.
Hang on. David Stratton wrote a book with the word avocado.
The Avocado Plantation is the name of the book, and it's about the Australian film post-Australian New Wave, so like the 80s onwards, basically. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Or that 80s era. This is fascinating, Robert. I've lost my mind finding out about all this.
New release.
Well, I reckon let's get straight into your picks now. We'll pick up with your new release film.
Yeah.
This is a film that I was excited to see you pick up because I know you have a fondness for its subject. This is A Complete Unknown from James Mangold about the time when Bob Dylan went electric.
Yes.
Crime.
I saw it in February. No, late January perhaps. First day it came out.
Beautiful.
And I have a very long and complicated relationship with Bob Dylan as an artist, as you can imagine. And so when a Hollywood film gets made, but I went along with it with an open mind, and I like Timothée Chalamet. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
And I found it really good. It's not Dylan has something to do with the script. So, it's nothing with Dylan that he allows and that he's involved with that tells his story is ever the truth. So he messes with reality and dishonesty, if you want. And so he's always messing about with your mind. I mean, Dylan, that's what Dylan does. And so the film goes in and out of the truth. But I just thought what I found out about this was a really important turning point. Mangold, his parents are still alive and they're conceptual artists from the 60s. Mangold grew up in Greenwich Village in the 60s as a boy. As a teenager in the 70s, he gets it completely. Yeah. So he's a Hollywood person, but the feel of the film is I just loved seeing that world come to life. Chalamet's good. Ed Norton's incredible as Pete Seeger. Have you seen the film?
Yes, I loved Ed Norton as Pete Seeger. I thought that was an astonishing performance. And also Scoot McNairy as Guthrie, I thought that was in those scenes where it's the three of them together, I thought were just inspired.
I agree. And do you know the thing that hit me when I was sitting in the cinema, like I'm nervous, where's this going? And then in the first 5 minutes, when Ed Norton did Seeger, I just relaxed. Do you know what I mean? To me, it anchored the whole film.
Yeah.
Like a performance like that, he was just so authentic, great casting.
Yeah.
And wow.
And it's very handsome picture. Like
Yeah.
like you said, the recreation of Greenwich at that time.
Yeah.
It just looks so lovely.
Yeah.
It just looks very warm. I think my main criticism is the same kind of things that I have for a lot of these kind of movies of like these biographical films.
Tell me.
It would be that sometimes, and I think it goes back to your point as well, that because Dylan's involvement, he doesn't want to, he's lying, doesn't want to reveal too much. That by the end of it, I don't know what this film was saying about Bob Dylan. But I think with your approach in mind, maybe that kind of unlocks a little bit more for me, being like, this is why it's not saying too much about him, why it's not a new insight into him.
No. And I think I think Chalamet was good. I think Chalamet didn't try and imitate him. Chalamet was just sort of it just sort of came in. I really liked his performance. He was sort of channeling Bob, channeling the spirit without trying to do an imitation.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think the way that he embodies the songs are quite beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, sometimes you go, it sounds better than Dylan at certain points, you know?
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
And did you see his performance on Saturday Night Live where he just came out and
I
played
did.
two deep cuts?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great, I don't know if you've seen this, there's a great thing he does. Chalamet, he mimes to Visions of Johanna. It went up on TikTok or something, and like the song's about 7 minutes. It's Chalamet on a by the water on a jetty, and someone's obviously just got a handheld thing, and he just sort of mimes to it and doing all this sort of dancing, and it's really good. He gets into Bob, doesn't he?
Yeah,
you know? He can sort of go. And it's great to see, for me in a way, someone in their early 20s really get into Bob in a spiritual way. It's beautiful.
I think that's such a beautiful point. Like, and especially seeing through that new audience coming to embrace like Bob Dylan's work.
Yes.
And I think it's a great way to introduce young people to it. I mean, it's worked really successfully, I think.
It has. And and I like the end of the film. That really struck with me, where he sort of goes off on the motorbike. And he falls off the motorbike in real life in about a year later.
Yeah.
And to have that sort of Dylan just going off on a motorbike after this journey of the film, I found really, really meaningful and really good.
I do hope they do the continuing adventures. If they just revisit with this team, with these people, go back and do all the eras of Dylan from henceforth.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it'd be wonderful. Like, no one's really done that.
No. I think Chalamet could do it.
I think so.
As he ages.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
God, I can't wait to get to the Nash Edgerton directed Father Christmas music video where he's got that giant long wig.
Oh.
Now that's the movie I really want to see, that era of Dylan.
He can mess with your mind.
He truly can.
Yeah.
Weekly.
Well, let's get into some of your weekly choices now, Robert. We've got one of my favorite movies of all time you've picked up.
Really?
And I would say maybe one of the very best films ever made. Yeah. From one of the greatest filmmakers, Billy Wilder. You've got Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
Crime.
The classic Hollywood set noir film.
Yeah.
I think maybe the greatest film about movies, the greatest film noir ever made. Yeah. What made you pick this one up today?
I'd seen it recently with our daughter who's 23, and so she'd never seen it, and she has a great aesthetic sense, and she just loved it. And my wife and I had seen it before. I'd seen it back in the 70s. Yeah. Grant and I were really into Billy Wilder in the 70s. Like to us, it was like, if we weren't going to do the band, we fantasized about being Billy Wilder and Charles Brackett, his screenwriting. His screenwriting. And that was like a partnership that we just went, there's something like Talking Heads, television, whatever, and there's Billy Wilder films. Yeah. And it was like, they're the two. And so, and our favorites were probably Sunset Boulevard, Some Like It Hot, and The Apartment, which is probably our favorite.
Yeah, hard to beat those three, really.
Unbelievable work. Do you know what I mean? But Sunset Boulevard, and for Grant and I, like that, the idea, we love the idea of starting with a dead body in a pool that is talking to the audience is just such a stunning idea, and this sort of weird mansion, pool, black and white, body floating like that, and then just the narrator comes in and it's the body talking. It's just such a mind-blowingly good concept.
And that shot as well of William Holden floating, where you're seeing up from the bottom of the pool looking up. There's nothing really quite like it. Like, that is one of cinema's magic moments. You go, like, how are they doing that? How is that possible?
Yeah. And the film was made 50-51. To be doing this look back at the silent era so early, it's not like the 60s or 70s. It's coming up, it's just barely over. And you're doing this, not nostalgic, you're doing this really twisted, weird take on the silent era through the Gloria Swanson character and having Eric von Stroheim, as the butler.
Her real former director, one of the great silent filmmakers, playing her butler. Like, all of that metatextuality is just brilliant.
But as I say, it's not like happening in the 70s or like in the 2000s, like someone going into those sort of mind games. Not mind games, but you know what I mean? Like twisting, postmodern or whatever you want to call it. It's like way back in 1950.
It makes like the silent era feel gothic somehow.
Yeah, it does.
And then from gothic roots, it then builds noir over the top of them. It's just like, it's such an incredible work. And I think that's why it persists so much. Like, there's musicals based on it. Yeah. How was your daughter's reaction to seeing it for the first time?
She was like really thunderstruck by it. Like just how, and I must admit, the weird thing was, you're sitting and watching with you're sitting with someone and they're watching a movie and you start to see it through their eyes. And I was watching it and I was going, like Gloria Swanson, like the sunglasses and the fingernails and the cigarette on the ring. And and I'm going, and I'm looking at my daughter and I'm just going, and she's like, just, wow. And because she has a full aesthetic appreciation of all this stuff. And so she was like, it's a very, very weird film for its time.
It really is.
You can't really pick out a film from that era that is stranger and more, in a way, perverse that was made in Hollywood, can you? I mean...
No. Like, especially, like, it's made in Hollywood. It's one of the great criticisms of Hollywood and, like, pushing away stars and forgetting them. Yeah. It's so cynical. Like, I think that's Wilder's greatest touch of cynicism is in this film.
Yeah. I was reminded of how dark it was. I'd forgotten just how far it goes into darkness. And when she, when the young woman who can offer him everything, like the screenwriter who wants to write with him, like, let's get out of here. And any other director would have gone, oh, here's the end of the film.
Happy ending, here we go.
But Wilder just then turns nasty.
Yeah.
And she leaves in tears and he's just like, whoa.
Yeah. It's that true pull of the darkness that is like capable of this kind of noir film.
Yeah.
There was one point that you made earlier about like that, I hadn't even really thought about this before, but that narration that it begins with, which is this post-mortem, basically, narration. I kind of want to use that as a springboard to kind of ask you about, from a songwriter's perspective, like the idea of narration. Because I find it kind of fascinating, this idea of like, who is the narrator of a film, who is the narrator of a song. Yeah. And on your new album, there's a song that I absolutely love called Breakfast on a Train.
All right.
This long, beautiful, like just such great humor in this song. Can you tell us about, like, I guess, writing that song and the narration of that song as well?
A lot of it comes, what I write and what I do, and it's illustrated by this song, comes from stuff that I see and is near me, which maybe Wilder was doing. Maybe, like he's in Hollywood. Yeah, anyway. But I had them. I'll keep this short. But I had the melody, and I knew that was something special, and it was quite a long song. It sort of rotated, and I knew I could do verses and I could tell a story. And then, so about a month after I'd written that in Brisbane, I was on a train, because when I'm in Europe over the last years, I travel by train. You know, like because I don't have a road manager or roadies or a van, or I go by train on a rail pass. And so I was traveling from the first show that I was doing. That's from my last album, The Candle and the Flame. This is 2023. So I went from London up to Glasgow, and I sort of walked along the train. It was like, oh, great, I'm back touring on a train. And then I just sort of walked past the dining cart. And there's already people in the cart, like people rush to, those carts. And they're always filled because it's better there than in your seat, And I just... And, people have lunch there and dinner and all of that sort of stuff, and they're always filled. And I start to think of this thought, it's my mind, I can't turn it off. It's probably like your mind.
Yeah, I think so. And we're grateful you can't turn yours off. I'm still trying to find ways to flick mine off at any point.
I know, so am I. And I just sort of looked at it and I went, what circumstances would someone have breakfast on the train? And that just sort of suddenly hit me, that thought, as I was standing in front of the dining cart. And I just started to think, and it'd be, you'd have to go through the night. Mm-hmm. This is your first meal of the day, so you probably haven't slept, and you've had to rush to get to the station because you haven't eaten. What would be that story? Like what would get you to a train at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning to wolf down food, your first food of the day? And I started to think about that, and I immediately thought of maybe a couple going through the night. They meet. So I started to get the idea, and I thought, breakfast on the train. I thought, wow, there's the song title. And then the second, so we went to Glasgow. I was with my son, Lewis, and we're playing together. And so we played Glasgow. The next day we're going to Edinburgh by train. There's an international rugby game going on the next day in Edinburgh, Ireland versus Scotland. Everyone in Glasgow says, don't get on that train. Like, people are going to be pissed at 10 o'clock. It's just going to be horrible. Don't get on the train. So we had to get a cab, which cost about 250 quid from Glasgow to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Although we had tickets for the train. And so we get to Edinburgh, and it's like there's this rugby game going on. And Lewis and I are staying in this hotel in the middle of the town. It's raining. And I think, this is where the song could be. And it brings in the rugby game. So suddenly you're listening to the song and like a rugby game comes in, and it's like, and Lewis and I the next morning took a taxi quickly to the station. And so all of this I just put into the song. Yeah. And it gave me details like the rugby game, like Edinburgh, like the train station, like the hotels nearby, all that I could just pick out and put into the song. And then I just worked it on from that over the next weeks, just building and building and building. But it came from, you could never think of that. Yeah. If I'd have sat down in Brisbane after writing that song, I would have never thought of that.
No.
But it was being there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that absorption, the storyteller's eye just finding stuff.
Yeah.
But it's such a beautiful song. It's so fun.
Oh, look,
as well.
I'm very, very, very happy about it.
And it has one of the greatest fucks I've ever heard in a song ever.
I know. When I hit that, you hit a moment and you go, wow, you put it in that fuck. It's like, I just went, tick. I'm now this song is getting better and better and better. Yeah.
Well, we've got one more film in your pile here to talk about.
Yeah.
It's a 1958 film starring Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak, and it is not Vertigo by Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah,
it's the other film they made together in 1958, a film that I absolutely adore.
So you've seen it?
I've seen this movie, yes. Yeah. I saw this, one of my best friends, Kate Jinks, who's a programmer for the Melbourne International Film Festival.
Yeah.
This is her favourite movie. And she put this on. She used to program for the Golden Age Cinema in Sydney. She used to put it on every year at Christmas. And that was the first time I ever saw it was maybe 5 years ago, maybe even earlier than that. But it is the movie Bell, Book and Candle.
Yeah.
And it's a Christmas tinge.
Yeah.
Comedy.
Romantic comedy with a lot of whimsy and witchiness.
Yeah.
It's basically Kim Novak plays a witch that falls in love with her neighbor and tries to put a spell on him to make her fall in love. The classic tale.
It is a classic tale. And when you're actually telling that, I suddenly realized something, because A Complete Unknown is set in Greenwich Village in 1961. And Bell, Book and Candle, I hadn't realized this, started as a play set in Greenwich Village in the mid-50s, which was popular on Broadway, and they made the film. So the film's actually set in Greenwich Village in about 1958.
It is.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I would never have thought about that.
Yeah, you were describing the film, and then suddenly I went, hang on.
They're the same streets they're walking around. Now, if only there was a witch in a
There might have
complete
been.
unknown, there may have been.
James Mangold should have thought of that. But yeah. So to me, this film is so beautiful. You can turn the sound off.
Yeah.
And you're looking, the colours.
It's this beautiful, pristine colours.
It's just this purple and red and black and snow falls. And it's got Jack Lemmon playing bongos in a Greenwich Village, nightclub in 1958. I mean, there's a witch's covert, I mean, it's got witchcraft, it's got humour, it's about the supernatural. It's a really hard film to define.
Yeah.
And it's just, Kim Novak looks otherworldly. There's a cat called Pyewacket, who's got a major role in the film. It's a most beautiful, gorgeous world to get lost in.
And it's got these great supporting performances. For me, I'm very drawn to romantic comedies, particularly the 1960s ones.
Yeah.
And I'm always drawn to who are the best friends, who are the people surrounding the couple.
Yes.
And I think this one has maybe, I would say, better than anyone else.
Yeah.
You've got Jack Lemmon, as you said. Ernie Kovacs is fantastic in this as well.
Yeah.
But I'm also really drawn, because it feels like a bit of stunt casting, to have Elsa Lanchester, the bride of Frankenstein herself in this film.
Yeah.
I think those supporting performances just work together to give this film its unique identity beyond its two leads.
Yes. And this was to get back to, I watched this one recently as well with our daughter, because we started to do film nights. And so this was the big connection for her. She'd seen Bride of Frankenstein, with Elsa Lanchester with the
big hair.
Yeah. And so suddenly it was, it's the same, this is 25 years later. It's a great cast. Well, I mean, the casting, Ernie Kovacs, I think, probably just made this one film before he died or something, and it's a really spooky, it's a very otherworldly.
I think otherworldly is the great word for it, because like you said, it's those purples. It's almost like a mist and mysticism and whimsy about this, because it also never stops being fun.
Yeah.
It never stops being sweet in a way as well, but it's got this campness to it.
Heavy
really
campness,
works.
heavy campness, and Kim Novak's working in at the start of the film in a shop in Greenwich Village that sells African artifacts, and it's just sort of, and she's standing in the shop, and it's just it's very sort of hip in a way, before its time. It's a little bit. It's what you were saying actually. Those comedies, romantic comedies from the 60s, but this is one from 1958. It's a little bit ahead of its time.
It really does, because it predates stuff like Bewitched. It really feels like it's the first in that. There was another film even earlier in this called I Married a Witch,
right?
Which I always think of these two films together. I think that one's black and white. I always preferred Bell, Book and Candle, but I Married a Witch, there's those kind of supernatural romantic comedies of that that era, but it feels like it caught on a little bit later.
Yes, it did. It was more of a 60s concept, actually.
And especially because it's the Greenwich that's portraying is that kind of beatnik.
Yeah.
It feels much more in the 1960s era than it does the 1950s.
Yeah, no, they were ahead of the curve. And that scene in the nightclub where that guy's doing that dance, and it stays on it for quite a long time. And there's this he turns out to be, I think, a French guy, and he's in a suit. He's obviously, and he's doing this sort of interpretive dance on stage while Jack Lemmon is playing bongos side of stage, and he's just going, I can't believe I'm seeing this,
Yeah.
Very beautiful, beautiful film. And tell me about this woman down in Melbourne.
Yeah, so Kate Jinks, she's a film programmer. We used to do movie reviews together on The Mix on ABC TV.
All right.
And it's just always her favorite movie. She loves witch films. So I think this and Suspiria are like her two favorite films on the opposite ends of the witch spectrum.
Right.
But yeah, that was how I was introduced to it, was that she used to program it every year for Christmas.
Should I watch Suspiria?
I think you should. It's completely different vibes to this. It's a
I've heard
horror
that.
film,
Yeah.
but it's got a great soundtrack. And the connectivity between these two films would only be they have very bold aesthetic visions.
Right.
But
I
if you're
like
feeling witchy, you know, it could be a very interesting double bill, I'd say. Yet to ever be programmed together, Bell, Book and Candle and Suspiria. But you may be the first to do so.
You'd get thousands there.
I think you shall. Yeah, I think you shall.
And I Married a Witch, what's that like?
I Married a Witch. I've not seen it for quite some time.
So it's black and white and it's from the 50s,
I think
right?
it's black and white. Let me see if it's from the 50s.
Can you remember who's in it?
Let me look it up for you. Married a Witch. I feel like I'm actually at work now typing away at the computer file stuff. 1942. Renee Clare directed it. Frederick March and Veronica Lake. And Robert Benchley as well.
that'd be
17th
good.
century witch returns to wreak havoc in the life of a descendant of the Puritan witch hunter who burned her.
Oh, that.
And it's kind of it's a fun kind of screwballish comedy from that time.
So it starts at the Salem, did you say?
Yeah.
Oh boy, I've got to watch that.
I think, well, that's an extra recommendation for you then, I think.
Okay.
Staff pick.
Now, Robert, it's time for me to look into the archives and try and find you the perfect recommendation based on your taste.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
And I really jumped off Sunset Boulevard as the point because I think I'm very drawn to film noir. So I was trying to find you something in that sense.
Can I just ask something?
Mm-hmm.
If I've seen this film before, does it count?
I will give it to you, and I'll give you the other ones as well.
All
and
right.
you can strike me down if you've seen it before. I will have failed you here today.
Okay. All right.
So
Okay.
I'm trying to do my best to not fail you. It's
Okay.
important to me that I don't, but if I have, you have to be honest with me.
Okay. If
So-
I've seen it,
If
I
you've
have to
seen
be
it,
honest.
You have to be honest with
Okay.
me. Please
I'm not-
never lie to me.
Okay. I'm going to close my eyes and I'm preparing myself for this.
So I really was thinking about this film noir thing.
Yeah.
And this is a film from 2015, which is a movie called Too Late.
Thriller.
Have you heard of Too Late?
No.
So it is a very simple premise. It's John Hawkes as a private eye scouring the streets of LA to track down a missing woman from his past. He then finds himself tangled up in a sleazy scandal involving strip clubs, petty drug dealers, and missing girls. So it's all this kind of familiar plot.
Yeah.
But the way that it's told to you is a rather unique way. And I think going through these films and going through your work as well, I really thought a unique delivery system of a film would be more interesting to you than not.
Yeah.
And this is a film that was shot so it's 2015 release. It
Great.
was shot in 35mm Techniscope in 5 long takes. So
Oh,
each
I love
scene
that.
of this movie, each scene is 1 long take, and that uses the entirety of a roll of film. So it's 20-minute scenes. Each one is just an entire roll of film that they shoot out. And so there's great moments in this where, say, it's just one camera shot. It's one camera shot the entire time. And they run the entire roll through it. And there's the way this kind of film begins is it's this huge wide take. It zooms in, you see someone ring a phone, zooms back out, you find someone else in the same space that's taking the other end of the phone call. So it's stuff like that that's able to experiment with how it's told. I think it's very successful in the way that it kind of takes a noir story because it has this unconventional structure that evokes old Hollywood noir with that kind of new Hollywood pulpiness in quite an original way.
Yep.
And John Hawkes, amazing. Love John Hawkes. Do you know the actor John Hawkes?
No.
He was in Winter's Bone was probably his biggest thing.
My cinema knowledge has gone over the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, because I just haven't been much to the cinema. But who's the director?
This is the only film this person's made. This is a director called Dennis Huack, or Huack. I don't know how to say
They've only
that
made
name.
one film.
Only made one film, and it's this kind of experimental triumph, in my opinion. There's a lot of great reviews for this film as well.
Oh, right.
I think a lot of people accused it of being Tarantino-esque or Tarantino ripoff, but to me, if you watch it and you have some film knowledge of film noir, you go, no, this is riffing on stuff the same way that Tarantino riffs on things.
Right.
But what was kind of the kismet thing for me was this film also features the Bob Dylan song "I'll Remember You."
Oh.
And also, I've already chose this film out for you. And then by pure coincidence, it also does feature the actor Robert Forster in a small role as a strip club owner.
Wow. Okay. He's dogged me, you know.
I can
It's
imagine
beautiful.
the
It's
SEO
beautiful.
would be very interesting.
No. I actually had this, you know, because you put my name into anything, and especially over the last 10 or 15 years, the two names come up. You know,
Yeah.
like, and of course, when he came back with Jackie Brown, you know, like I was sort of aware before that, you know, like that he'd made Medium Cool, and that there was this. I knew he existed, and he's the only other Robert Forster that I knew in the world, and then with Jackie Brown, he came right back.
He came right back.
And
Oscar nominations.
Yeah, and then, but I had there was a weird moment. It was a couple of years ago where I just sort of flicked on, The Guardian, and I looked at the headlines, and it said Robert Forster dead. That was a funny moment, because that for a split second, that was like hard to process.
Yeah. Not many people see that headline with their name featured in it.
Yeah, and but he seemed to have a really interesting life and career.
Yeah.
And
did you get many phone calls that day?
no, I didn't. I didn't. Thank goodness. But and is my one final question: is there any romance in the in the film?
There is some. I think it's like an interesting take on it where, that's kind of sticky noir quality where it's someone from his past.
Yeah.
And there is a performance in this by an actor I'm not very familiar with, which is just this mesmerizing performance because just one scene long performance as like a lot of this film is shot in these big segments.
Yeah, 5 20 minutes.
It's this actress called Vale Bloom. She's probably best known for someone from being in The Young and the Restless.
Okay.
But she has like this incredible performance and this like long breakdown performance to like this Nick Cave song in it. That's just like something really... It's crazy this is not a bigger film, and because it's so singular, it's crazy this performance didn't launch her more. But she's also best known as being in the reality show Vanderpump Rules, which is like a Hollywood set reality show. This is the only thing I've ever seen her in, but I'm just like, this is one of those great performances that just went completely unsung.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is bold casting.
Bold, lots of boldness going on in every sense of this film.
And it's called Too Late.
Too late, yes. Too
And
late.
and tell me, how would I see this film?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it is on Amazon Prime. You can watch it for free if you've got a subscription. I think it's the only way you can watch this film as well.
Amazon Prime.
Because it only ever screened in cinemas in 35mm.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been hard to find, but it's out there now for you to find.
And do you know what's happened to this director?
No idea.
Like any
I hadn't thought about this movie in 10 or so years since I last saw it. I started thinking about it the other day when I was trying to find a movie for you. And I was like, I want to see what this director's done since. He's not made a movie since. So that'll be my next mission, and I'll forward it on to you if I have any findings.
Wow. Okay. Well then, thank you. That's a great recommendation. And I can tell it's going to be good.
I hope so. I hope so. What if I fail? It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Well, no, I mean, just what you've set up with it and what you've told me is very, very promising.
Okay, that's all I need. It's very, very promising. Well, Robert, thank you so much for joining me here in the Last Video Store.
Absolute pleasure.
My pleasure to have you in here. I've been looking forward to this so much, so I'm so glad I could give you some good movies to go home with.
When Mariam told me that I, the premise of the show, and that it was with The Advocate, I just thought, oh, this has to be brilliant.
I'm glad. I'm glad it was brilliant for you then.
It has been.
And you're going home with your little stack of movies. You've got a complete unknown from your new release. You've got Sunset Boulevard, Bell, Book and Candle, Too Late, and we're also going to chuck in I Married a Witch in there.
Yes.
We'll chuck in I Married a Witch. And what was the Lee Remick movie that we...
Hallelujah Trail.
Hallelujah Trail. We'll put that in there too. And then whatever the 1980s one that we saw, Emma's War. Emma's War will be in there for you too.
That is an amazing group of movies.
It is singular.
Very.
You're going home with a couple of big bags full of movies, I'd say. And we'll try and find you a free ice cream at some point too.
I would love that.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Pleasure.
Put her there.
Thank you.
The Last Video Store.
And thank you once again to Robert Forster for joining us on The Last Video Store. A dream, a treat, a delight, a true cinephile, a movie maniac if you've ever seen one before.
A buff, even though he wasn't
Self-identifying
like
as a buff, but I think that he is one. He is one for sure.
He is.
His new album, Strawberries, is out right now. Beautiful listen. Like I said, Breakfast on a Train, love this song. Love this song. Check it out. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, comment, Last Video Store Batuta on Instagram, because usually I do read out reviews and give you a recommendation based on your picks that you would leave in the review or the comment. I just wanted to get straight into this episode, so we didn't do one at the top of the show, but we are on the search for more picks because I want to keep recommending as many movies as possible.
We had to recommend a book on Antarctica written by your cousin first.
Yes,
so
I did it. I know. And we took a break from recommending movies to recommend a book that I've yet to read, but I have purchased. I will be reading it soon in honor of my cousin who did write it.
Good.
But also because Robert picked up like a million movies. You know, we got a lot of extra recommendations on this episode.
Everyone's got their fill this episode. Yummy.
Yummy indeed. But thanks for joining us. Watch us on YouTube. Recommend us to your friends. Word of mouth helps this show grow and survive, and also for cinema to grow and survive as well.
Do it for cinema.
Do it for cinema. Do it for me. Cinema's greatest soldier.